The ice in my glass cracked just as Maisie Walker's phone lit up on the staircase. Sign the shares over by midnight, or the embezzlement story goes live. The message stayed on her screen long enough for the pink and white birthday balloons above the foyer to blur behind it. Downstairs, the party kept laughing. Someone clinked a fork against a wine glass. A jazz playlist hummed through hidden speakers. My mother and her best friend, Elaine Walker, were somewhere near the dining room, pretending not to cry over a two-tiered birthday cake covered in pale roses. Everything looked warm, expensive, harmless. Except Maisie. She sat on the third stair in a modest pink floral dress with a cream cardigan folded beside her, one hand gripping the polished wood, the other hovering above her phone like touching it might make the threat real. At the foot of the staircase, a crushed pink paper napkin lay against the baseboard, bright and ruined against the perfect floor. I set my glass on the console table. No coaster. Later, I would remember the condensation ring spreading across the wood and hate myself for noticing that, instead of how pale her face had gone. I crossed the foyer. "Is this step taken?" I asked. Maisie looked up fast. The mask returned 1 second too late. "Jared." Her voice was careful. "No, of course not." "Hiding from the toast?" "Something like that." I waited until she shifted her cardigan, giving me room, before I sat down. I left space between us. Maisie had always been precise about space. Architecture did that to people. So did fear. Her phone buzzed again. She flinched. I did not reach for it. "Who is Richard threatening the call?" I asked quietly. Her eyes closed. So I had guessed right. Richard Vale had been her father's former junior partner, then her own business partner. And for the last 2 years, the man trying to pry Walker & Company out of her hands, he wanted control of the architecture firm her father built from a rented desk and 2 municipal renovation contracts. Maisie had refused every buyout. Now he had stopped asking. "You didn't see that," she said. I saw enough. Her fingers tightened around the phone. "He says he has financial logs. He says the Chronicle is ready to publish at midnight. What does the fake story claim?" Her gaze dropped to the crushed napkin. "He moved contingency funds into my personal LLC, the one I use for pro bono urban planning projects. Then he reversed it. The transaction history makes it look like I tried to siphon firm money, panicked, and put it back." The party noise below us swelled, then faded behind the blood in my ears. If the story went public, Walker & Company would lose its clean ethics certification before Monday. Their municipal contracts would pause. Private clients would run. Her father's name would be dragged through a scandal he did not live to defend. And if she signed over her controlling shares by midnight, Richard would bury the fake logs and take the firm quietly. 2 locked doors, both built by him. "Why didn't you call counsel?" I asked. "I did. Nora is in a deposition in Denver. She can join by phone in an hour. I won't release admin logs without written authorization, and I couldn't ask my staff during my mother's birthday party without turning this whole house into a rumor mill." She tried to smile. It failed. "And you," she added, "are Elaine Bennett's son. You're here for cake, not corporate blackmail. I'm also a crisis PR manager. You handle public companies. I handle threats with clocks attached." Her eyes lifted. I kept my hands on my knees, visible, still. "Maisie, I won't touch your phone or your systems without your permission. But if Richard built this with forged logs, we can make the paper trail stronger than his story. I need written authorization from you, Nora, on the phone, and whoever runs your IT admin access." She stared at me. Downstairs, our mothers laughed at something. The sound made her flinch worse than the phone. "He's counting on me not making a scene," she whispered. "Then we don't make a scene. We make a file." For the first time all night, she set the phone down beside her instead of holding it like a shield. "My father's study is upstairs," she said. "It has a wired connection." "Good. And Jared?" "Yes. If I say stop, you stop. Immediately." She nodded once. Then we stood. We did not sneak. Sneaking creates stories. We simply walked up the stairs like two adults stepping away from a loud party to talk somewhere quieter. Her father's study smelled like cedar, old books, and furniture polish. Architectural sketches lined the walls in black frames. A brass desk lamp glowed over a clean oak desk. For a moment, Maisie stopped in the doorway and looked at the drafting tools arranged in a shadow box behind the chair. Her father's tools, her inheritance, her burden. Then her phone buzzed again. "I'm at the gate. Don't make me come in and explain this to your mother's guests." The room changed. I closed the door. "Forward nothing to me yet," I said. "We preserve first." Maisie signed a limited authorization on her tablet. Nora Velez, her outside counsel, joined by video, with her hair still pinned for court and her patience already gone. "This better be real," Nora said. "It is," Maisie answered. That was enough. I called Devin Blake, Walker & Company, IT administrator. He answered on the third ring, breathless, like he had been running. I saw admin activity. He said before hello, "I was about to call you." "Maisie." "Devin," Nora cut in. "You are authorized to preserve admin session logs, device IDs, VPN activity, document access records, and account change history for the contingency account. Do not alter anything. Read-only export. Chain of custody timestamped." "Yes, ma'am." I opened my laptop. This was my part. Not hacking. Not magic. Structure. Nora handled legal authority. Devin preserved system records. Maisie supplied the internal context. I built the crisis map, what Richard had, what he wanted, where the lie would break if pressure hit it in the right place. At 10:07, Richard texted again. "I can see the mayor's wife from the foyer. Sign, or I start with her." Maisie's hand tightened around the edge of the desk. I slid a glass of water near her right hand, on a leather coaster this time. She looked then at me. "Drink if you want." I said, "Ignore it if you don't." She took one sip. Small practical wins mattered. At 10:22, Devin found the first crack. The transfer session used Maisie's admin credentials. He said over speaker, but the session token was generated from Richard's issued laptop. Device certificate matches his machine. The login originated through the Office VPN during a window when Maisie's badge was used at the birthday venue. Nora leaned closer to her camera. "Preserve that. Already exporting." At 10:31, the second crack appeared. The alleged transfer approval had been created 6 minutes after the reversal. The order was impossible. Cause after effect. Richard had staged the cleanup before the crime existed. Maisie stood very still. No tears, no collapse. Just one hand over her mouth, like she was holding back every version of herself that wanted to scream. "Maisie," I said. She lowered her hand. "I'm here." "I know." "No," she said, voice rougher now. "I mean, I'm still here. I thought seeing proof would make me feel safe. It doesn't. It makes me angry." "Good." She looked at me. "Good? Fear makes you small. Anger can build a door." For 1 second, she stared at me as if she wanted to argue. Then she turned back to Devin's screen. "What else do we need?" There she was. Not saved. Not steadied by me. Back inside her own frame. At 10:44, Nora drafted the preservation notice to Richard and the Chronicle. At 10:51, I drafted the holding statement. Walker & Company has identified evidence of an attempted internal records manipulation. Counsel has preserved system logs and notified relevant parties. Any publication based on altered financial records after notice will be met with immediate legal action. No panic, no pleading, no denial that sounded like fear. While Nora reviewed the language, Maisie stood and crossed to the sketch wall. Her fingers hovered near one frame drawing of a small library facade. Her father's handwriting marked the corner. First city contract. Don't forget the public steps. He used to say a building fails at the places people stop noticing. She said. I looked up from the laptop. Your father? She nodded. cheap flashing, weak fasteners, bad drainage hidden behind expensive stone. He hated cosmetic perfection because it made clients lazy. Her fingers touched the frame. Richard knows that firm is the only thing I have left of him that still breathes. I closed the laptop halfway, giving her the room without making the silence feel abandoned. And that's why he chose tonight, she said. My mother's birthday, the house full of people who loved my father, the mayor's wife downstairs. He wanted me to choose between humiliating my family in public and losing the firm in private. Then we give him a third choice. What? A locked door. At 11:03, the doorbell rang downstairs. Maisie looked toward the study door. Richard had come inside anyway. Through the floor, the party changed pitch. Not louder, tighter. He was good. He knew how to smile in public while holding a knife under the table. He'll go to my mother first, Maisie said. No, I said, watching the hallway camera Maisie had pulled up on her tablet. He's heading for the stairs. Richard appeared on the landing 30 seconds later. Charcoal suit, expensive watch, empty expression. He looked toward the closed study door and smiled. He knocked once. Not polite, possessive. Maisie, he called. We need to finish our conversation. Nora's voice came from the laptop. Do not open that door without a witness. I looked at Maisie. Her face had gone pale again, but her spine was straight. How do you want to handle this? I asked. She looked at the laptop, at Nora, at the framed sketches on the wall, at the study door. Then she walked to the desk and picked up the printed preservation notice. We open it, she said, but we do not let him in. That was the moment I stopped thinking of her as someone I needed to protect. She was the architect. I was only helping her see the load-bearing walls. I opened the door halfway and stood to one side, not blocking her, making room. Richard's eyes went first to me, then to Maisie. You brought a date to a shareholder negotiation? He said. Maisie did not flinch. You came to my mother's birthday party to threaten me in front of guests. His smile sharpened. I came to prevent you from embarrassing yourself. At the landing, 2 guests appeared from the powder room. Their chatter died when they saw Richard outside the study door. One of them glanced toward the staircase, already weighing whether to carry this moment downstairs. Maisie saw them. Her fingers moved once. Then she reached for my hand. Not behind my back, not hidden. She took it in plain view, not as a romantic claim, but as a grounding line she chose for herself. Her palm was cool. Her grip was steady. Then she leaned closer, voice barely audible. Not here. I understood. Not in the hallway. Not where Richard could turn fear into gossip. Not where guests could become weapons. I gave her hand one steady squeeze, then released it before facing Richard. Study stays closed. I said, counsel is on the line. The discussion is over for tonight. Richard's eyes narrowed. You don't get to manage me, Jared. No, I said. The evidence does. Maisie held out the preservation notice. Nora is on the line. Devin has preserved the admin session logs. Your device certificate appears in the transfer record. The Chronicle has been notified that the records are altered. Richard's face changed. Only for a second, but I saw it. So did Maisie. He looked past us, toward the party noise below. You think anyone downstairs will understand device certificates? No, Maisie said. But they understand locked doors. And this one is closed. She took one step back. I closed the study door. In his face. Not loudly. Not theatrically. Just enough. A line drawn. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Richard's footsteps retreated down the hallway. At 11:38, the Chronicle editor acknowledged counsel's notice and paused the article. At 11:52, Richard sent one final message. You just made war. Maisie read it. Then she handed the phone to Nora's camera view. Let counsel capture it and set the device screen down on the desk. Then we fight properly, she said. The next 72 hours were not romantic. They were legal. Nora filed for an emergency injunction Monday morning. Devin submitted a sworn declaration with the device certificate, session token, badge location mismatch, and impossible timestamp order. The Chronicle killed the draft after reviewing the preservation packet. A municipal client called at noon, asking whether Walker and Company remained eligible for the library restoration contract. Maisie took that call herself. I stood across the office while she spoke, not feeding lines, not rescuing pauses. Our ethics certification remains active. She said, Counsel has filed evidence of attempted records manipulation. I'll send the formal packet within the hour. If you want to pause until your legal department reviews it, I understand. But I will not let Richard Vale's misconduct become Walker and Company's shadow. She listened. Her thumb hovered near her index finger, then stopped. Thank you, she said. We'll be ready for Thursday's site review. She hung up. They're staying, she said. No, I said. You kept them. By Tuesday afternoon, the staff knew enough to be afraid, but not enough to gossip usefully. That was dangerous. Fear fills blanks. So Maisie called an all-hands meeting. Walker and Company's office occupied the third floor of an old brick building downtown with long drafting tables, model shelves, and windows overlooking a row of sycamore trees. The space felt exactly like Maisie. Clean lines, warm wood, no wasted gesture. 52 people gathered near the materials library, senior architects, interns, project managers, the receptionist who knew every client's coffee order, 2 junior designers who looked like they had not slept since the word embezzlement hit their inboxes. Maisie stood at the front, with no podium. I stayed at the back wall beside Nora, whose arms were crossed and whose expression said she would sue the air if it moved incorrectly. Some of you have heard rumors, Maisie began. Some of you received calls from clients. I won't pretend silence protects us. It doesn't. It only gives someone else the first draft. The room went still. A former partner attempted to manipulate internal financial records and use those altered records to force a transfer of control. Counsel has filed to preserve evidence. Devin has secured the system. Our ethics certification remains active. Our municipal contracts remain in place. A junior designer near the model shelves raised a hand. What if clients leave anyway? Maisie looked at him. Then we tell the truth with receipts. And if one still leaves, we do not build a future around people who prefer rumors to records. No one spoke. Then Lila Hartman, the senior architect who had worked with Maisie's father for 20 years, stepped forward. I reviewed the library restoration deliverables this morning. Lila said, the client is staying. And for anyone who forgot, this firm survived a recession, 2 floods, and that courthouse renovation where the ceiling tried to murder us. We can survive one angry man with fake paperwork. A nervous laugh moved through the room. Not much. Enough. Relief did not always arrive as comfort. Sometimes it arrived as an older architect with a sharp voice reminding everyone the ceiling had lost. After the meeting, Lila stopped beside me. You're the crisis man, she said. I am. You any good? Depends who you ask. I asked Maisie. She said, you made the file stronger than the fear. I looked across the office. Maisie was standing with Devin, reviewing next steps. Her shoulders looked tired, but not collapsed. That sounds like her, I said. Lila's eyes narrowed. You care about her. I did not answer fast enough. Lila snorted. Good, but keep your head on. She needs clean ground, not another man making claims in a crisis. I know. See that you keep knowing. I liked her immediately. That night, Elaine Walker found us in the kitchen of the birthday house, long after the last guest left. The balloons had sagged. The cake was cut down to one uneven layer. The crushed pink napkin still sat near the staircase. Elaine looked at her daughter first, then at me. I know something happened, she said softly. I also know Maisie is standing straighter than she was before the party. Maisie tried to answer. No words came. Elaine crossed the kitchen and took her hand. You don't have to tell me tonight. Maisie's eyes filled. I almost lost Dad's firm. Elaine squeezed her hand. No, sweetheart. A man tried to steal it. That is not the same thing. I looked away. Some sentences should not have witnesses. But Maisie looked at me until I looked back. She wanted me in the room for that one. So I stayed. On Thursday morning, the library site review happened under a sky the color of wet concrete. The old building sat at the corner of Maple and 3rd, boarded in places, beautiful in others. Its stone steps were cracked, but the proportions were graceful. Maisie stood beside the city project manager with a roll of drawings under one arm and mud on the heel of one shoe. No one mentioned Richard. That was the win. They talked about drainage, accessibility, historic windows, budget phasing, real things. When the city project manager asked whether the recent legal dispute affected Walker & Company's capacity, Maisie unrolled the drawing across the hood of a truck. Our capacity is here, she said, pointing to the revised schedule. We moved the community room procurement 2 weeks earlier because the window restoration has a longer lead time. Lila will run facade review. I'll attend the permit meeting personally. The dispute has been isolated from operations. The project manager studied the schedule, then nodded. We stay on track. Maisie kept her face composed until he walked away. Then she turned her back to the wind and closed her eyes. Only for a second. I stood beside her, not touching. The blueprint snapped softly under her hand. He didn't take this, she said. No. And neither did fear. No. She opened her eyes and looked at the cracked stone steps. My father designed the first restoration plan for this building. It never got funded. Now it will. She nodded. Then she picked up the drawings and walked back toward the site team. I followed because my job required it. And because I wanted to. 8 weeks later, Richard signed his exit agreement in Nora's conference room with his own attorney present. 2 witnesses and a recording device on the table. No party pressure. No hallway threats. No midnight signatures that could fall apart in court. He surrendered his remaining shares at a negotiated penalty rate and agreed to full non-disparagement, cooperation with the forensic audit, and a permanent separation from Walker & Company. Maisie signed last. Her hand was steady. Afterward, in the elevator, she took a folded piece of pink paper from her purse. The crushed napkin, flattened now, still creased. I picked it up after you left that night, she said. I hated it at first. It looked like proof that I had almost fallen apart in front of everyone. And now? Now it reminds me I didn't. She slid it back into her purse. I wanted to take her hand. I didn't. Not yet. I was still advising her firm. The legal cleanup was active. The press positioning still carried my name. Wanting something did not make the timing clean. Maisie knew. That was the worst part. She smiled like she respected me for it and hated it at the same time. For the next month, we spoke mostly in conference rooms and copied emails. Nora was on every strategy call. Devin was on every evidence call. Lila insisted on joining one communications meeting because she wanted to make sure PR words didn't smother the architecture. She sat through the whole thing, then told me my draft was less irritating than expected. High praise. Maisie and I became very good at standing 4 feet apart. Very good at professional language. Very good at ending calls before silence could turn into something else. The clean ground mattered, but it was not easy. One evening, I stopped by the office to drop off the final media risk memo. Rain hit the old windows in thin diagonal lines. Most of the staff had gone home. Maisie stood alone at the model table, adjusting a tiny paper tree beside a miniature library entrance. I set the memo on the table. Final packet. She looked at it. Thank you. You don't have to read it tonight. I know. She adjusted the tiny tree again. It fell over. She laughed once, under her breath. The tree is resisting adaptive reuse. Most trees do. She looked at me then. No legal emergency between us. No phone threat. Just rain and a paper tree that refused to stand. Do you ever get tired of being careful? She asked. Yes. The honesty surprised both of us. Her expression softened. Me too. The tree fell again. This time, I picked up a small piece of museum putty from the model tray and held it out. She looked at my open palm, then took the putty, careful not to touch my fingers. Not because she did not want to, because we were still keeping the line. She fixed the tree. It stayed. Good, I said. Tiny structural victory. Those count. She smiled. Then my phone buzzed. Nora. Final audit review moved up. Maisie saw the name on the screen and stepped back first. The line held. That was how I knew it meant something. 3 months later, Walker & Company cleared the audit. The municipal contract stayed. The library restoration broke ground on a bright Thursday morning, with Maisie standing in a hard hat beside the mayor, explaining adaptive reuse like she was describing a promise being kept. I stood at the back of the small crowd while Lila leaned toward me. "You helped save this place," she said. I shook my head. Maisie did. Lila smiled. Good answer. Not the whole answer. The mayor handed Maisie a ceremonial shovel. Cameras clicked. Elaine stood near the front row, wiping her eyes with a real handkerchief because Elaine believed tissues were for people without standards. After the photo, Maisie stepped down from the platform and came straight to her mother. Elaine touched the hard hat. "Your father would have hated the speeches," she said. Maisie laughed, tears bright in her eyes. He would have corrected the mayor's pronunciation of Cornus. He absolutely would have. Then Elaine looked at me over Maisie's shoulder. "Jared." "Yes, ma'am?" "Your mother says you haven't been sleeping enough." I blinked. My mother should not have operational access to my sleep schedule. She has friendship access to mine. That is worse. Maisie laughed harder. That sound stayed with me all day. 2 weeks after that, Nora finished the conflict review for my new role. Not head of strategy. Not anything that put me under Maisie's direct authority or made romance look like compensation. Walker & Company retained my firm for external reputation strategy under a board-approved agreement. Maisie did not sit on the vote. Nora made the minutes so dry they could absorb rain. Only then did Maisie ask me to meet her at the new downtown office after hours. Fresh paint, untreated cedar, expensive coffee. A wall of framed sketches waited in the lobby. Maisie stood beneath it in a navy suit, holding a small black frame. Inside was the crushed pink napkin, flattened carefully behind glass. "You framed it," I said. "I did. Bold design choice. It's going in my office, not the lobby." "I'm not that dramatic." "You shut a door in Richard's face. That was architecture." I laughed before I could stop myself. She stepped closer. No party around us now. No legal emergency. No mother's guests. No midnight clock. No man waiting in the hallway with a threat. Just Maisie, holding the proof of a night she survived. "I want to ask you something," she said. "Okay." "Not as a client." "Okay." "Not because you helped save the firm." "You saved the firm." Her smile softened. "Not because of that either." She set the frame on the side table. Then she reached for my hand, the same way she had on the staircase. This time, she did not whisper. "Would you have dinner with me, Jared?" The question landed more deeply than any confession could have. Clear, public enough in the empty lobby, free of debt, free of pressure, free of Richard's shadow. Yes, I said, I would. Dinner was not candlelit or cinematic. It was a small Korean place 2 blocks from her office, where the tables were too close together and the owner knew Maisie by name. She ordered for both of us after asking what I hated. I told her mushrooms. She looked at me like I had failed a moral test and ordered them anyway on the side. For growth. No one mentioned Richard for the first 20 minutes. We talked about her father's terrible handwriting, my mother's talent for gathering secrets from women in book clubs, the way Elaine and my mother had apparently been planning a shared vacation for 3 years without telling either of us. Then the food arrived, and the conversation softened. Maisie picked up her water glass and turned it once on the table. A faint ring formed beneath it. She noticed me noticing. "You and water rings," she said. "I'm improving." I used a coaster in the study. You did. I would like credit. You may have 1 point. 1? Out of? She smiled. We'll see. I looked at her across the small table and realized something had shifted. During the crisis, every room had an exit plan. This room did too. The front door, the hallway to the kitchen, the narrow path between tables. But for once, I was not measuring how to leave. I was learning how to stay. 6 months later, I stood in Walker & Company's new lobby while the design team gathered for the morning review. Maisie walked out of her office carrying 2 coffees. She handed one to me, then turned toward the team. Before we start, she said, Jared's firm is officially staying on as our external strategy partner. Nora has made sure the paperwork is painfully clean. A few people laughed. Nora, standing near the conference room with a folder against her chest, said, Painfully clean is the only clean I respect. Maisie looked at me. And personally, she added, voice steady, he is also the man who stood beside me when silence would have been easier. No one gasped. No one whispered. Lila simply raised her coffee and said, About time. Maisie smiled. Then she slipped her hand into mine. On the side table behind her, the framed pink napkin caught the morning light. A crushed thing, not hidden, not discarded, made part of the room. That was when I understood what safety really was. Not preventing every fracture, not controlling every angle. Sometimes safety was choosing the person who handed you the evidence, waited for your permission, stood beside the closed door, and trusted you to be the one who shut it. The end. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Real love is not a rescue that takes over the room. It is steady presence, clean choices, and practical help that lets someone reclaim what was always theirs. Green flag. Healthy love respects timing, boundaries, and agency. It does not turn crisis into debt or protection into control. It gives both people a clear, free choice after the danger has passed. Like plus subscribe. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.